he's talking about. He said someone's looking.
I can't believe they just did that. We really live in a world without Foggy Nelson now. In fact, how dare they take Foggy Bear away from me like this? Who do they think they are, killing him off like this? It's not fair. I'll do anything to get Foggy back on our screens. I miss him so much already. It's really over. Aw, man, I might just have to kill myself next. I can't live in a world without Foggy, man. It's not right. But there's nothing we can do about it now, so we may as well accept it. Foggy is dead. Alright, now that I've speedrun the 5 stages of grief, we need to talk about Daredevil Born Again. I'll dive into if killing off Foggy is a good or bad idea in a second, but first, I just want to say that I thought these first 2 episodes were amazing. There's going to be a big video talking about the entire show after the season wraps up, but after that heartbreaking death, I needed to drop everything and make a video on this, and I feel like it's important context to discuss the surrounding episode real quick. Also, I need to stay working so I don't hurl myself off a rooftop after that. But my short thoughts on the show are this. I think that they are cooking right now. Is it perfect? No. There's some noticeable CGI and lighting issues that can't be ignored. Like, for example, as cool as this scene is in concept, I could not see a lick of what is happening. But for a show that was reshot and stitched together, it flows really well, even if you can tell what's old and new. But despite all that, it really worked for me in all the ways that counted. It's very different from what came before on Netflix, but not in a bad way. To me, it's very similar to the idea that a writer would leave a comic book and a new writer would come in and take over where that person left off. They're continuing the same stories, but it's going to feel different because they're bringing their own sense of style and writing to these stories. It's still a character-driven show with inspired writing, next-level violent action, and great visuals that do it all justice. And as much as Foggy and Karen's absence is felt, I am really enjoying the new supporting cast, especially my beloved Kirsten McDuffie. Plus, Matt is just as big of a whore as ever, so things are looking up. It's so nice to be back in the Defenders side of the universe again, getting Jessica Jones references casually thrown out, now just with an added mention of Echo and Spider-Man? Hell yeah, please let that man beat up a child already. I can't wait to see what comes next over the coming weeks, but before we can get to that, let's talk about the Foggy-shaped elephant in the room because I have so many conflicting thoughts that I need to get out of my system. For starters, I will straight up say that I do not like this decision. For me, Foggy is the one character you can't kill off when it comes to Daredevil stories. I cannot stress enough just how important Foggy is when it comes to grounding Matt as a character. Their friendship is the one consistent tie Matt has to a normal life. Foggy acts as the North Star in Matt's life, someone who is constantly guiding him and pushing him towards doing the right thing. He's the voice of reason and the metaphorical angel on his shoulder as his devilish tendencies weigh on him on the other side. Foggy is able to bring Matt back down to earth by giving him someone to care about and someone who is fiercely loyal to him. Obviously, there are going to be other characters in his life who he's friendly with, but nobody as much as Foggy. I don't know if someone like Karen can take that place and fill that void Foggy leaves behind. Sure, he and Matt might get a divorce every few months, but they always come back together. I would argue that he might be the most important supporting character in all of comics. That's probably a hot take, and I would accept answers like Lois Lane, but Foggy is absolutely up there as one of the most important, and someone who makes or breaks a good Daredevil story. I know there have been comics without him in it, and that he's died before, and Matt's gone to hell to rescue his soul. It's a long story, but it always feels like something is missing when Foggy is gone. His absence will be heavily felt because of him being a cornerstone of Matt's life. But in the Netflix show, Foggy has mostly had this combative relationship with Matt. In season 1, they're great friends up until Foggy finds out the truth, and then in season 2, we start to see them drift apart more and more. By season 3, they're hardly on the same page up until the very end when we get this fresh start, and we're promised to see Matt, Foggy, and Karen finally start their own firm and work together, actually being happy for once, which is a miracle in any Daredevil story, but I guess that was too good to be true, and Marvel saw him smiling for more than 5 minutes and had to kill his best friend. We had just reached a really interesting point between these characters where they finally have come to terms with Matt being a superhero and them working together as lawyers, and I would have loved to just explore them being happy together like this, and see where their relationship goes as friends now that they're finally back together again. As a writer, I understand that killing Foggy is an easy move because it immediately sets Matt off, and it gives him an interesting arc to explore, but without Foggy, I don't really know how he comes back from that. Matt's life is always going to feel so much emptier without him there to guide him and be this support system for him to rely on. It is one hell of a bold decision that I genuinely can't believe they did. But from a narrative and storytelling perspective, I do think they handled it pretty well. I don't want to say I like the idea because I don't, but I think that Bullseye coming to get revenge on Karen and finally finish the job by killing Foggy to make her suffer is an inspired idea. I do really like that Bullseye is beefing more with Karen here than Matt. I think it creates this really interesting dynamic between the two. I don't know if it's worth killing Foggy over. I also think the way Matt and Foggy's last conversation went with each other is a really tragic way to do things, where they were having this disagreement, and even in his final moments, Foggy still never supported Matt's vigilantism, and Matt doesn't even get to say any final words to him before the attack happens. It's done in such a way that maximizes the amount of pain you're going to feel from his death, so I have to at least appreciate that they're going all out with this and making sure that if you're going to cross that boundary and kill off Foggy, it counts. And while he might not be physically there, it's very clear from the direction these first 2 episodes are going that Foggy's presence is going to be felt throughout the entire series. We see it in little moments like when Matt carries a picture of Foggy along with him everywhere he goes, or the fact that he can't enter a church because of the guilt he feels. So I'm glad that it's not just this one moment and then we move on and never think about it again. And I have to give them full credit. It is such a great and inspired idea to have Matt listen to Foggy's heartbeat throughout the entire fight. It adds so much tension to the scene as this ticking clock is going on throughout the background, as Matt is frantically trying to get revenge on Bullseye while also being there to support his friend. And then obviously the moment where his heartbeat does finally cut out is the saddest thing maybe in the entire MCU for me right now. My eyes were watering up watching that. I am an emotional wreck. Going off all the marketing and knowing the original plans for the series, I was very confident this is what was going to happen, but they still really bummed me out watching it. The way it all climaxes too, with Matt casually trying to kill Bullseye, really caught me off guard. With Fisk, Matt had this constant internal struggle, wondering if he should kill the man and if it's worth destroying his own reputation and identity just to put that evil out of the world. And they had that debate drawn out over the course of season 3, but now to have Bullseye kill Foggy and just immediately make Matt ready to kill someone is, I think, such a great small little detail that indicates just how much Foggy meant to Matt. It's not even like Matt has this big speech to him or tries to kill him in this violent way. He just tosses him off a roof. He wants him dead as fast as possible, and I think that goes a very long way in selling the weight that this has on Matt, and Charlie Cox is giving arguably his best performance as Daredevil here. With the utter desperation he screams at Bullseye, wondering why he did such a thing, and the pained look on his face when Foggy actually dies is gonna haunt me forever. It's such a powerful visual, seeing him break down and cry, immediately giving up being Daredevil just because he doesn't think he's worthy if he can't protect his own best friend. The only thing scarier than that is when they cut back to Karen and she's on the ground sobbing over Foggy's corpse, with Bullseye landing right behind her, and she doesn't even have the guts to turn around and see who it is because she thinks it might be Matt. Even as someone who is vehemently against the idea of Foggy dying at all, this is probably the best case scenario. It's for sure better than what we would have had before. The fact that he was killed off screen and they would have hardly felt the repercussions of it throughout the series is actual insanity to me. I'll never be able to fathom how somebody thought that was okay. Foggy and Karen are the life and blood of the Daredevil series on Netflix, and you wanted to just take them out off screen and not even explore the ramifications of that properly? This entire creative shakeup is the best decision Marvel has ever made. It's crazy to think how bad we could have gotten it. And I'm trying not to hold this idea against the current creative team too much, because they've made it very clear that they were locked into this decision when they signed on. For those who are unaware, during Born Again's creative shakeup, they scrapped 3 episodes of the series entirely, that being episode 1, 8, and 9, to try and make it feel more in line with the Defenders universe, and now bring Foggy and Karen back into the picture. So I appreciate them at least trying to make it as impactful as possible, because the alternative would have been a complete mess that would have probably had me at Marvel Studios' door right now, burning the building down. I just have to hope they stick the landing, and they actually explore the ramifications of such an incredibly impactful event in Matt's life. It's a nearly impossible move to pull off properly to make me feel emotionally satisfied by the end of the season, but I'm going to do my best to keep an open mind. I don't know what it's going to take for them to pull off such a feat, but I am 100% rooting for them here. I want them to be able to do an incredibly bold move like this and make it pay off well. I'm just a little concerned because removing such a pivotal part of Daredevil's storytelling within the first 10 minutes of this new season is a crazy move. But like I said, what's done is done. There's no way we can undo this. They just have to move forward. He's what? I need to break out the insanity board, because if Eldon is coming back next season, this could change everything. Where there is delusion, there is hope, and I could really use some of that right now. So let's put on our thinking caps real quick and try and figure out How would he come back? Would Marvel be willing to do a fake out for his death? Considering the fact that we don't see a funeral, it's possible. I mean, Matt did seem pretty sure when he was taking this stand, and you can't exactly lie under oath. So I guess from Matt's perspective, he's dead and he doesn't know about Foggy being alive at all. But maybe he survived it somehow. Maybe Fisk had him legally declared dead and has him put in a coma somewhere to have this control over Matt. I don't know. I'm spitballing here, desperately trying to figure out an answer. If they are going to go the fake out route, I think the most interesting thing they can do is put Foggy in witness protection, which has happened before in the Brubaker run of Daredevil, I believe. Okay, hold on. I need my previous self to shut up real quick. There has been a breakthrough in the case for the Foggy Lives truthers. Thanks to Sean on Twitter for pointing this out, because it has changed my life and given me so much more hope and delusion that he actually could survive this show. The address for Nelson, Murdock, and Page is 468. And the crazy thing is that Daredevil 468 is The Secret Life of Foggy Nelson, where Foggy fakes his death. There is no possible way this could be a coincidence, especially considering the fact that this was all done in the reshoots, so they must have planted this Easter egg to give fans hope that he actually will survive this series. So here's my new theory for what happens. Foggy is shot and temporarily killed by Bullseye, but they resuscitate his heart on the way to the hospital. At the hospital, Foggy goes into witness protection program, and Karen knows about this. Foggy can get relocated to San Francisco, and that's why Karen moved out there, and it also would explain why she's so hesitant to talk to Matt all of a sudden. Besides Matt being a very self-destructive person pushing her away, she really had no interest in getting coffee or talking to Matt at all, and I think that's because she knew he would find out the truth. It makes so much more sense why they would write her out of the show, because she can't be around Matt, otherwise the truth would come out. And I think you could get a really interesting dynamic twist there, where now Foggy's the one keeping secrets from Matt and has been alive this whole time. And we can see Matt grapple with this complex range of emotions, knowing that he did some pretty terrible things when his friend was still alive out there and he just had no clue. Could make for some very interesting storytelling, and is a very dramatic way to write themselves out of this hole they were put in before they ever even signed on. And the main thing in the actual show itself that leads me to believe Foggy survived is the fact that we never find out what happened with his client Benny. All we know is that he was stashed at his apartment, but we don't know why or how. There was no resolution to that plot point at all, and I feel like in the back half of the season, we're gonna learn why. Could this be a very simple case of me reading way too much into the details? Absolutely. But I am very confident now in saying that Foggy is going to survive this show, and we're gonna fully get him back in season 2. So my happiness is restored, my depression is gone, the clouds are parting, and the sun is finally here again, now that we have a huge indication that Foggy has survived. But here's the thing. As much as I want him back, and I feel like this show desperately needs him right now, is it even worth bringing him back? Is it just my selfish need for more of these avocados at law that I'm desperately clinging onto, hoping they can find any way to bring him back? I mean, yeah, 100%. Would it undo Matt's entire character arc for this season? As he has clearly been repressing this anger, rage, and guilt for a year now, and now that he's being put in situations where he has to start fighting people, we're seeing those cracks start to form, as he's beating them to a bloody pulp. I have to wonder what his arc is going to be this season as he comes to terms with losing Foggy, and then only to just bring him back could undercut that development a lot, but honestly that might be a price I'm willing to pay to have him back in the fold. If Marvel don't bring him back, I understand why they might not, and they could always try to bring Karen back into the picture if she moves back to New York City, and she acts as this emotional rock, kind of flipping the comic dynamic on its head where Karen is the one who dies in the comics and Foggy lives. I'm sure a good writer could do something with that, but I don't know, man, it's hard to pull this off. They were backed into such a restricting corner where Foggy had to die in this season, and I don't know how you get out of it in a way that doesn't piss everybody off. We just have to hope that these are the greatest writers known to man, and that they can make this ending land with us. Oh god, I got completely off topic. I was still talking about how he can come back into the show. Let's say they do decide to keep Foggy dead. How is he going to come back in season 2? I think the most obvious answer is as a flashback, and we get to see his past experiences with Matt expanded upon again. Or maybe Foggy's back as a hallucination. It wouldn't be the first time Matt has started to lose his mind and began beefing with the voices in his head. Maybe his guilt manifests as Foggy, and that's how we get to see more of him. I think that my official stance on everything is that Foggy should have a fake-out death, and they need to bring him back, because he's such a significant character in Daredevil storytelling, and it would not feel right having him absent for the future, especially with Daredevil having this second life as he's born again on Disney+. I want Foggy to be there for that, and I feel like killing him off for that shock value death that sets Matt down this path, it's far from the most satisfying thing you can do, and is a huge disservice to his character. That being said, now that you're hearing all my thoughts on this whole Foggy death situation, it just goes to show how good this series is right now, that they can do something so problematic like killing off Foggy, and I'm still calling the first 2 episodes amazing just because of how much I enjoyed them, the writing, and this entire new direction they're taking the character. Whatever it is that Marvel decides, I'm very glad that we did at least get to see Eldon Henson back as Foggy again, again, and that he will come back again one day. The Netflix Daredevil show is forever going to be my favorite show of all time, and Eldon's Foggy is a very big reason for that. It felt like catching up with an old friend for the first time in years and picking right up where you left off. He never missed a beat, and he brings so much life to this series that I hope these showrunners realize and have plans to bring him back somehow. I'm probably a hypocrite in some way for saying something like that, but I don't care, man. I just need Foggy back in my life. Even for him as a character, it feels like we were just scratching the surface with him. I would have loved to see Foggy become the DA or adapt the cancer storyline. But no, Marvel had to make it quick. We couldn't just give the man cancer. Can't even give someone cancer nowadays. No matter where things go from here though, I am hooked on Born Again. That opening fight scene in that pilot episode was so strong, and then followed up by a really interesting second episode setting the stage for what could be a fascinating season of television. I am praying that they find a way to pull this off and stick the landing, because if so, we could be in for a generational run of Daredevil storytelling. Alright, it's currently 2 a.m. I need to go to sleep so I can wake up and rewatch these episodes for the entire day, so I'm gonna go ahead and end things there. Thank you all for watching. Please let me know down below what your take is on this whole Foggy death situation. I would genuinely love to hear what everyone has to say and continue the conversation down below. And while you're at it, you may as well give the video a like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. If you don't do it, they're gonna kill Foggy a second time. Yeah, you heard that right, they're gonna bring him back in season 2 just to kill him again, so you better subscribe to keep him alive.